This is CBC Here and Now.
They're working for $30, $40 less a day. Put that on a 5-day week, you're going home with $150, $200 less.
Taxi drivers in Corner Brook are asking for a boost
to help with the surging price of gas.
Northeast winds pick up tomorrow for parts of the province, and that means flurries or freezing drizzle in the forecast.
A song called Come Home.
The province is marking Come Home Year 2022, but one town is opting out.
Thinking about what if there's another variant that comes.
Why is Wabash the place to be in 2023? I'll have that coming up.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. The high price of gas, it's a struggle cab drivers in particular are feeling right across the country. Now a couple of cab companies in Corner Brook are hoping the city will lend a hand. Here Now's Troy Turner reports.
As gas prices climb, the cost of doing business is going way up for taxi companies, and drivers are taking a direct hit. Now, 2 cab companies are hoping to change a city bylaw with a new fuel service charge.
Price of gas is really affecting the taxis in Corner Brook, and to a point where it's getting difficult to get drivers. Like at the end of the day, they're working for $30, $40 less a day. Put that on a 5-day week, you're going home with $150, $200 less. And it makes it difficult to keep drivers and keep cars on the road.
King and his partners are proposing a $2 charge to be implemented.
We're not looking to make any extra money out of it. And in our proposal, we've also requested that gas goes over $1.65 a litre. We'd put the program in place. When gas drops back below $1.65, we go back to our regular rate.
And the city is considering it.
We are hearing everybody complaining about fuel costs, but this industry is one that we had to look at because it's a direct cost to how they do business. We want our taxi industry to be sustainable here in the city. We want proper equipment. We want them to abide by all safety and provide a great service to our residents. All that comes at a cost, and we recognize that.
For the cab companies, it's about staying afloat, being able to continue providing a service to the city, especially during peak times.
People go out on Friday and Saturday nights and want to leave their vehicle home and depend on us to get them home. And if we're not out there, they got to get home.
So what's next in the process? Well, at Monday night's council meeting, there will be a notice of motion brought forth. After that, at the following council meeting in about 2 weeks' time, council will make a decision on the matter. Troy Turner, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, the price of diesel and home heating oil is up across Newfoundland and Labrador. The Public Utilities Board has interrupted its weekly price setting schedule once again to change prices a day early. It's because the board says there's a, quote, significant upward shift in the benchmarks used to set the maximum prices. A release from the board says the increase is considered extraordinary and warranted the early adjustment. The price of diesel is up 6 cents a litre in the province, while furnace oil has risen 6.3 cents a litre and stove oil is up by 5.5 cents a litre. The price of gasoline and propane, that remains unchanged. 5 more people have died from COVID-19 since the province's last update on Monday. Now that's the most reported in a single update. A total of 92 people have died now, and that number has doubled in the last 6 weeks. There are 29 people in hospital because of COVID, and that's down 2 from Monday's update. Now that number is still high, but the health minister insists hospitals can manage the situation. He made these comments at yesterday's briefing.
30 inpatients or 31 inpatients in acute care is well within the means of the system to manage. It is lower by 50% than our typical flu inpatient load most years when we see flu. And the precautions, as I've said, are the same for most respiratory viruses. So in terms of the impact on the resources of the healthcare system, we are within what we can manage now.
Well, as plans ramp up for the province's Come Home Year this summer, one town in Labrador has decided to postpone until next year. Here Now's Daryl Din explains.
The provincial government has gone big with its Come Home Year 2022 promotions, including this slick video. But Wabash won't be taking part this year. The organizers decided to postpone the event until next year.
It was a difficult decision for us, certainly one we didn't take lightly. We felt by January we had to make a decision for those who are coming back to Wabash, and as you know, Live West is not around the corner. It takes a lot of time and money to get here. So in order to facilitate that best for people, with the Omicron variant kind of rising its head again, we were unsure what to do. So we just thought it would be better in the best interest of everybody if we waited until next year when there was a certain confidence there.
The pandemic has made planning any event tricky. New variants have led to lockdowns, travel restrictions, and cancellations that weighed on the minds of the organizers.
Well, we were thinking about what if there's another variant that comes, and what if the regulations come down from government that we have to cut back capacity in restaurants and venues and bars 50%. I mean, Wabash isn't like somewhere close to St. John's or a larger center where people could have a vacation anyway and go somewhere else to eat or do something entertainment-wise. Kind of limited to what we have here.
Play it safe and make sure that when people did come home, they could come home not only safely but more relaxed and be able to enjoy it more and not have the worry, I guess.
MHA for Labrador West, Jordan Brown, supports the committee's decision.
It is prudent that they thought about the former residents, and many of them are seniors well up in their years. So protecting people that are traveling, it is important, and we can still have a great time next year.
And perhaps a sign that timing wasn't right, the day organizers decided to postpone was the same day the Mike Adams Recreation Complex in Wabash was shut down by the town.
It seemed to us that was a sign that maybe we were making the right decision, because the rec center in Wabash is pivotal to anybody who lived in this community, as anybody who lives here knows. And we were hoping that maybe by next year that would give the town of Wabash some time to figure that out with the rec center and open it up again, to be used as a very busy venue.
Even though they're postponing for a year, the committee does get to keep its local and provincial funding for next year. In a statement, the province said the postponement of Wabash does not affect the province's overall Come Home Year campaign. As splashy ads and even new commemorative license plates advertise Come Home Year 2022 for the province, Wabash is instead marketing itself as the place to be in 2023. Daryl Din, CBC News, Wabash.
I'm taking a live look outside. Looks like a pretty nice evening right now. We see a few peaks of sun out there in and around, but temperature sitting around -1 today. Finally saw some relief from that wind for a good chunk of the afternoon, and the reason for that is the placement of that area of low pressure now. It's offshore, and this ridge of high pressure to the north. Unfortunately, even though we saw some less windy conditions in the east, we're still seeing some fairly windy conditions along coastal areas of Labrador, and you can take a look at that right now. Winds right now sustained at 61 kilometers per hour, even hearing of some power outages up along the coast. We're still seeing some windy conditions, or gusty conditions, I should say, along the west coast as well, gusting upwards of 91 kilometers per hour for Cartwright and gusting around 59 kilometers per hour for Stephenville. Now, taking a look at what's going to happen, we're finally going to see some relief of those winds as we head into the morning hours. Most of the night will be fairly windy, but then all areas along the northeast coast are going to see some windy conditions through a good chunk of tomorrow, eventually easing for the rest of the island, but I'll have the full forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. The provincial government is confirming what the opposition says it was told earlier today. Industry, Energy and Technology Minister Andrew Parsons says the federal government has requested a delay in the launch of the 2022 call for oil industry bids for exploration in the province's offshore. The federal energy minister has asked for a 90-day delay. So that means the annual land auction in which oil companies bid for the right to explore, that's all on hold. The PCs say it's another sign of worrying uncertainty for the local oil industry.
So we're seeing what's happened here. We saw the seismic program being cancelled a number of months ago. We've seen and we heard from insiders in the industry that there was going to be a delay in Bay du Nord. Then we had that confirmed. Then the minister asked for a further 40-day delay. We're now hearing that there's a rift within the Liberal cabinet and Liberal caucus about what should happen. We saw yesterday the coalition between the NDP and the Liberals federally, and what some of the concessions that may have to be given up. And we know some of those may be around the oil and gas industry. And now we're hearing today, again from industry insiders, that there may be a further delay on the sale of land for the future of the oil and gas industry in Newfoundland and Labrador. We're telling the people of this country and this world that we're not open for business. It's telling me that the federal government are controlling the resources in Newfoundland and Labrador and how we use those resources.
Well, in a statement too, CBC Minister Andrew Parsons said the province has approved the decision. However, Ottawa suspended the provincial approval for additional time to review for a period of up to 90 days in accordance with the Accord Act. Now, Parsons added, quote, "I do believe the 2022 call for bids will proceed." Now, in Ottawa, MP and political minister for this province, Seamus O'Regan, was asked today if he worries his party's new deal with the NDP will push the Liberals too far left, alienating more conservative-thinking Liberals. Well, yesterday, the two parties reached a deal to support Justin Trudeau's minority government right through to 2025. O'Regan says anything that pushes policy forward is positive.
I am all for stability and certainty. One thing I've learned in this racket is that we're all human beings. You only have so much time in a day. The more time you spend on what my grandmother used to call old foolishness, you know, the less time you're actually governing and moving policy forward. So I'm delighted for stability.
Well, in other news, the former head of Canada's largest private sector union is being accused of accepting $50,000 from a supplier of COVID-19 test kits. That's according to Unifor's Secretary-Treasurer, Lana Payne. An investigation was launched against Jerry Diaz after a complaint was made in January. Diaz, who often appeared at rallies in this province, has been head of the union since its creation in 2013 and stepped down a little over a week ago, citing health issues. Now, just before Unifor released the findings of its investigation today, Diaz released a statement of his own saying he's been battling debilitating sciatic nerve issues and has been coping with painkillers, sleeping pills, and alcohol. He says his judgment has been impaired in recent months and he owes it to his members to seek treatment. His statement reads in part, "I am entering a residential rehabilitation facility. I will also be stepping away temporarily from all of my advisory positions. I want every member of Unifor to remember what we have accomplished together. We're not defined by this." Well, in other news, it's been more than 5 years since a string of fires in Bay d'Espoir caused major damage. A convicted arsonist targeted public buildings, and since then, a new school has been built and now an important milestone for community groups. Here Now's Garrett Barry has this report.
Setting up their old time classroom.
What's old is new again.
And of course, this is where the Legion stuff is going to be stored.
After years on the outside, the volleyball games and the card games
B15
are back.
Majority of us into our 70s, some are in 80s and some are in 90s. It's pretty hard to get active, and getting out now active in the community, into this building, is a good thing for our seniors.
It's been years since bingo was called in here.
G48.
Ever since a fire destroyed the old school and this building needed to be repurposed. But now the students have moved next door and it's feeling a lot like normal.
It's great to be back actually. There's work to be done. Getting all the groups resituated in the building, finding space for everyone, getting them set up. Everyone's excited to be back and we're looking forward to getting up and running again to full capacity.
These groups still have been meeting over the past 5 years. The Seniors Club says the generosity of this community has kept them afloat. But as they move back in here, they're saying there's no place like home.
We went to the Lions Club, and that if they got a paying customer come in, then we had to give up our day. So having our own space where we can come, if, like I said, the day wasn't fit, we could always come tomorrow. Now we can come and we can go when we please.
The range in this space is impressive, the older and the younger.
I do it like almost every day.
Yeah, most of the time.
Almost every weekday.
On the weekdays.
Usually whenever it's open.
Yeah.
So now they have all that flexibility back, and they have every night of the week for our sports programs and our art, our wellness programs, everything now. So we're very pleased with that.
In this big building, a great chance to work together.
We partner with the library for many programs, science nights, board game nights, and the 50+ club. If they're doing a potluck, they bring food out for the youth, and the youth will make cupcakes for them. So, you know, it's a big community effort.
And before too long, the Heritage Group, the cadets, the food bank will all be set up here too.
I think in a couple of months you'll see a big difference in a positive direction.
Garrett Berry, CBC News, St. Albans.
Well, it was a family affair at an annual race in Port Hope Simpson, Labrador over the weekend.
Yeah, participants in the 16th Eric Rumboldt Memorial Dog Sled Race say the event is more than just a sport. It's also about keeping tradition alive.
CBC's Regan Burden was there.
Eric Rumboldt is one of the men credited with keeping dog sledding alive in southern Labrador. At this year's race, in his memory, 11 teams headed to the starting line. And crossing the line for first place was his nephew.
Oh, it means everything to me. Dogs is my life, and just being like the family, keeping the family tradition alive. And like I say, I've been racing this one now for a few years, and this is one race that I've always wanted to win, and I finally did it today.
Rumboldt's 8-year-old son has already started his own team and currently has 3 dogs of his own. But Rumboldt says that dog sledding is a tradition that goes beyond his own family.
And it's not only the family tradition, but it's all Labrador's tradition. If it wasn't for the dogs, I mean, there's a lot of people that wouldn't be here. The dogs got their food, they got their wood, and we owe a lot to the dogs. So to keep the tradition alive means a lot.
Rumboldt says that growing up around family members who ran dogs, like his Uncle Eric, and hearing their stories is what inspired him to run his own team.
I'd say he's up there now grinning hard. Yeah, it means a lot. I was thinking of him all the way around the course. Yeah, and then when I come across, I said, well, he's looking down on me anyway.
The impact Eric Rumboldt had on his family, friends, and community is long-lasting. His nephew Carl Rumboldt coming first this year, and Carl's brother Watson Jr. Rumboldt also taking part in the race. His niece sits on the committee that organizes the race and has only missed one since it began.
Like, Uncle Eric is a true Labrador man, like right to his bones. Like, the dog was part of it. He was a family man, but the dog and sledding was a close second. Like, anything to do with dogs, Uncle Eric done it.
While Savory doesn't remember her first dog sled ride, she recently found out it was her uncle who took her out.
I had many firsts with my uncle that I can actually remember, so making that another one, it's amazing. I love it.
With 11 teams participating in this year's race, it has organizers and community members feeling hopeful for the future of dog sledding in the area. Regan Burden, CBC News, Happy Valley Goose Bay.
Well, temperatures are going to start to warm up as we head into next week, looking at a high near 7 degrees by Monday. I'll have the full forecast coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
I like the look of those warm temperatures that you mentioned a little bit earlier. It seems like things are warming up a bit.
At least it looks like it. Things can change, obviously, but unfortunately that warm air is going to come with some rain, as it typically does this time of year. But right now we're looking at some snow, and we have seen some flurries through a good chunk of the afternoon today in some areas. Let's take a look at what's going on. That area of low pressure is the reason for that, and that's offshore at the moment. But we do have a ridge of high pressure moving in. That is going to clear things out for some of us as we head through tomorrow. And some of those colder temperatures, although in the upper levels, are sticking around, and that's why we are seeing some of the flurry activity. There's those stronger winds, though, up across Labrador and parts of the west coast right now. Now, if we zoom in out a little bit, this is our next weather maker, at least part of our next weather maker. Another area of low pressure is going to move in through the weekend, and it does look like things are going to get a little bit messy as we head towards Friday and Saturday. But for the near term right now, temperatures this afternoon hovering around the 0 degree mark for St. John's, a little bit warmer as you head towards the west and south, anywhere from 1 to 4 degrees. Labrador as well, fairly mild. Happy Valley, Goose Bay hovering around 0 degrees today. That temperature has dropped. Bit of a wind chill for you as well, certainly for coastal areas of Labrador. Feeling more like -18 in Makkovik right now, -12 in Cartwright, and then those temperatures into the minus single digits for St. John's. It's feeling more like -4. Not a whole lot of wind out there at the moment. We are seeing some flurries, though, in that onshore flow. You can see that even some of the cloud cover around Bonavista North. And then the flurry activity for the eastern areas of the island as well. Some of these are pretty heavy at times as well. Now, up across Labrador, still have that winter storm warning in effect from Cartwright through to Norman Bay, Lodge Bay, and that will generally continue as we head through the night tonight. As we see that onshore flow and all of that snow continue, generally going to see the flurry activity, or at least the chance of flurry activity, continue across the island as well overnight tonight. But the bulk of the precipitation should be for southeastern portions of Labrador. As we get into the morning hours, though, you will eventually see some relief of this snow. However, the winds will continue through the night and into the morning tomorrow as well. So those winds will be out of the north, around 60 to 80 kilometers per hour. Some areas could see that in excess of 100 kilometers per hour through the overnight tonight. So blowing snow will generally still continue. Cold night for Lab City tonight, -22, and then we're still looking at that flurry activity. Temperatures across the island will sit between -1 and -4. That relief of the wind will be over because the winds will pick up tonight. Northwesterlies between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour, a little bit stronger as you head towards the west. As we head through tomorrow, we've got that northeast flow, and that means that we're going to see that onshore flow and the potential for flurries, maybe even some freezing drizzle for northeastern areas of the island as we head through tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, we actually should see some sun along the west coast, south coast, and a good chunk of Labrador as that ridge of high pressure starts to move in. As that area of low pressure continues to track a little bit further east, it should pull that cloud cover with it, but we are still looking at the potential for some freezing drizzle continuing through a good chunk of tomorrow afternoon. By the time we get into the overnight, we should see some clearing skies, but then the next system moves in and that will bring some more cloud cover with it up across Labrador. Now, as far as the snowfall amounts go, again, the most will be for southeastern Labrador. You could still see another 10, maybe 15 centimeters in some areas, and even some of the higher elevations potentially for the northern peninsula could pick up about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow by the time we get into Thursday morning. Temperatures tomorrow should sit between -1 and 2 degrees. Again, those winds breezy, northwesterlies between 50 to 80 kilometers per hour. Labrador, you're looking at temperatures between 2 degrees and -3. Unfortunately, that ridge of high pressure doesn't stick around for long. I'll have the long range forecast coming up.
The federal Liberals have struck a new deal with the NDP in Ottawa, but what could this new alliance mean for this province? We'll speak with MUN political science professor Kelly Leduc coming up. Well, the federal Liberals and NDP have made a deal to support Justin Trudeau's minority government until 2025. It means the NDP has agreed to prop up the Liberals on confidence votes and budgets in exchange for getting priority items like dental and pharmacare pushed through. But what could this new alliance mean for this province? Joining me now is MUN political science professor Kelly Bladuke. So first of all, what's your reaction to this new deal?
I mean, I guess I always thought it was sort of a possibility that what we've seen with the minority government in Ottawa kind of required NDP support more often than other parties anyways. It's not entirely without precedence that you'd have some kind of plan with another party to get some things done. I was a little surprised to hear, sort of the scope of it. It does actually cover a fair range. And the plan is actually to try to keep the government in power pretty much for a 4-year period. And not surprisingly, I mean, we've seen in the past how the term coalition has been used as sort of a bad word. What we're seeing here is not a coalition. But it's not that surprising that that's how partisan politics works, right? That you have to attack it somehow, so you find the ways you can.
Yeah, coalition, that word has been used, power grab, backdoor socialism, all of these phrases coming from the Conservatives. What do you make of that rhetoric?
So, I mean, I think that there are actually some very valid criticisms to make of the position that the government will take and whether or not, sort of thinking of it ideologically, if you're more right-leaning, you're probably looking and say, well, this is, a suggestion by a left-leaning party to do more things that it wants. That's bad. I get that. What bothers me about it is using terminology that is blatantly inaccurate, misinforming people, essentially lying, to say that this is what you should think about this. I do think what we've got here, regardless of whether you like the NDP or like the Liberals, I think this is a perfectly reasonable way to approach having a minority government. And I think at the end of the day, it's better democratically. I think it will help people be clear about why things happened during the minority parliament. It'll allow the government to actually have a program to see it through, so we know what the Liberals are about, we know what the NDP is about. And it gives the Conservatives a good position to say what they're about too. So I don't think there's actually any real downsides here, unless, again, like I said, if you prefer more right-leaning policies, you're going to see some more left-leaning policies result from this particular group of parties getting together.
And provincial reaction to this yesterday was pretty swift. The PCs raised concerns about the Bay du Nord proposal, saying that they feel it's less likely to be approved with the Liberals working more closely with the NDP on things like climate change. What do you make of those concerns?
So I think it's a reasonable concern, kind of going back to the idea that this is going to be a government that will probably seem a little bit more to the left, if you think of that. But I would also just clarify that, what the NDP has proposed in terms of climate policy with this agreement is basically for the Liberals to do what the Liberals said they would do. Like, they haven't proposed something new here. What they've proposed is that they're going to remain serious about actual targets of net zero by 2050. And if the Liberals want to continue governing, they're supposed to show they're actually progressing towards something they promised. So, the Liberals had already put off their decision on Bay du Nord. I know that there was concern around this. And again, whether you sort of support that project or not, I know a lot of people really do. They see it as really an important element for this province. You could look at this and say, well, now will the decision somehow play out differently than it would have? I have a hard time thinking that that's actually the case, and I think part of it is even just the politics around it. So now would the Liberals in Ottawa say, well, we actually wanted to approve it, but we didn't because the NDP wouldn't let us? I just have a hard time seeing them make that argument anyways. I would tend to think that the Liberals kind of know the direction they're going on this, and it probably is going to happen the way it would have.
So the Liberals are in a pretty comfortable position right now for the next few years. As we all know, Premier Andrew Furey has a pretty friendly relationship with Justin Trudeau. So is that new stability going to be a good thing for this province, do you think, in any way?
That is a really interesting question. I think that to an extent here, the NDP changes that, right? And this goes back to the discussion about Bay du Nord and whether or not, things are more likely or less likely to happen. Obviously, Andrew Furey would like to see that project go through. He'd like to see approval. The real concern would be, what is the approach going to be if the Bay du Nord decision doesn't go the way that the province wants? I think that really is what's standing out there that people really want to know the most about. And again, I don't know how the politics will play out, how the NDP will play a role in that story. But my sense here is that, you know, those things aside, there probably are some benefits that can come from having the two sides together. Now, having said that, sometimes you're better off to be able to sort of fight. And this is also, you know, a history in Newfoundland and Labrador that we've had, you know, provincial premiers that have actually fought really hard with Ottawa. And sometimes you see some results from that too. So I would never say that, you know, one set of circumstances, liberal here, liberal there, is clearly better. I think it really does depend on what you're trying to get. And Andrew Furey may find a point at the end of all this where he feels he has to fight with Ottawa because he's not getting what he wants.
Well, it's certainly an interesting development in Ottawa. Kelly Bluetooth, thank you so much for this.
Well, thank you.
To hear live music in a concert hall, for us, that's what it's all about.
On Friday, a James Bond concert with the NSO. Stay tuned, meet the conductor. Well, a study has determined a significant number of healthcare workers in Quebec who caught COVID have been suffering lingering symptoms. So-called long COVID has an unintended impact on our already strained healthcare systems right across Canada. Lauren Pelly reports.
Just breathing deeply is now a challenge for Anne Barreux. She's a physician in Montreal and a long COVID patient. Since falling ill back in December 2020, the 46-year-old has also struggled with heart inflammation and intense fatigue.
If I push just a little, I'll be in my bed for days, not even being able to think.
Barreux hasn't been able to return to work, leaving her colleagues to care for her patients.
I know how much my colleagues are struggling and overwhelmed. Everyone's exhausted.
A new study out of Quebec found a high prevalence of post-COVID issues among healthcare workers who fell ill during the pandemic's first 3 waves, including memory problems and trouble concentrating. Out of roughly 6,000 survey respondents, 40% of those who didn't require hospitalization reported having health issues after 12 weeks, along with 68% of people who were in hospital.
And these cognitive dysfunctions for professionals working in the healthcare system could be quite important to do their duties.
Long COVID researcher Dr. Angela Chung treats many patients who are struggling with lingering symptoms.
From physicians, from nurses, from allied health workers as well.
She's among those worried about the impact of long COVID on a healthcare system that's already under strain.
I would suggest having coordinated effort across the country, having specialty clinics so that they are looked after, but also so that we can understand it better.
Barreux is working hard to recover, which also means making plenty of time to rest.
But on the ward or at the clinic, this is not something I can do or my colleagues can do when they're, in the heat of the action.
It will take more time before she's back to caring for patients, instead of just being one herself. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
With restrictions loosening, more employers are asking workers to return to the office, but not everyone is on board. A survey by Angus Reid, commissioned by CBC News, found that most people now working at home want to continue to do so most or all of the time. Jacqueline Hansen has more.
In downtown Toronto, a wave of workers are returning to the office.
Actually, it's my first day today.
They're encouraging everybody to come back.
Still, it's nothing like pre-pandemic times when you could get swept up by the current of commuters. And it may never be, since many companies aren't bringing everyone back to the office full-time.
I will be in a hybrid role, so a few days a week and the other days back in my slippers and PJ pants.
Leaving the comfort of working from home completely could be a deal breaker for some people. A new survey by the Angus Reid Institute in partnership with CBC News found 1/3 said if they were mandated back to the office full time, they'd consider looking for a new job. And nearly 1/4 said they'd quit immediately.
Even if they don't leave, do you think it's a good thing to have 1 in 5 of your people staying with you for golden handcuffs and hating you?
This researcher says there's no single solution for every workplace.
Start talking to your people. Stop pretending it's one and done here, that there is some magical plan. Ooh, you can implement it and it'll be a miracle.
It's what we would call a candidates market.
This recruiter says in-office jobs are the most difficult to fill right now.
Flexibility is what is really the most important, perhaps more than increase in pay.
At Wave, a financial services firm in Toronto, coming to the office has perks.
Stunning patio with gorgeous views of the city.
Yeah, it's meant to be an environment that's really comfortable, good for working, creative thinking.
Still, hybrid is the new normal here, and no one will be forced to come back.
I think if we did put a mandate into place, we would lose people, and I think we should. I think people have proven that they can be efficient at home, they can get work done, they can be trusted.
Putting the choice in employees' hands to stay or go. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
It's been a month since Russia invaded Ukraine, and on many fronts, the Russian advance has slowed to a crawl. And now NATO estimates between 7,000 and 15,000 Russian soldiers have been killed.
противника, і наразі 105 літаків противника вважаються.
This advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reports the more than 100 Russian planes have been destroyed, and Ukraine's military says it has regained control of more suburbs around its capital, Kiev. But Russian assaults continue to target civilians despite Moscow's claim that its forces are only firing back when attacked.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in Belgium for the next 2 days. He'll be attending a special NATO meeting on the war in Ukraine, and today he addressed the European Parliament and laid out Canada's stance on what needs to be done.
Must continue to impose unprecedented sanctions on Putin and his enablers in Russia and Belarus, increasing the pressure as much as we can. We must ensure that the decision to invade a sovereign, independent country is understood to be a strategic failure that carries with it ruinous costs for Putin and Russia.
Trudeau repeated calls for the ongoing shipment of humanitarian, military, and lethal aid to Ukraine. In his speech, he also talked about the pandemic, the rise of authoritarianism, and a growing distrust of facts.
Well, in other news, Anthony, a teacher in St. John, New Brunswick, came back to class with a new look. Evan Hashey hasn't cut his hair since the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, and the students noticed like they would, and together they teamed up to give him a trim, and as you're about to see, it was part fun, part fundraiser.
It's our first assembly in 2 years. It was amazing. The energy from the crowd, you could see they were excited to be all together in one space.
Your first assembly in 2 years? So some of the kids that were in there today, they would not have been to an assembly at St. John High before?
Nope, that was our first. They've heard about it from the grade 11s and 12s, but they would have never seen a full assembly before. Nothing to that extent. We've raised over $4,600, and that's as of this morning before the assembly started. There are still some funds that are coming in, and I've been assured that by the end of the day today, no matter what, by hook or by crook, there will be $5,000 to donated to the Red Cross.
Awesome. So what's next for the money? Where's it going to go?
Going to go to the Red Cross Ukraine humanitarian crisis, and then of course with the donations that's being doubled as long as it hasn't hit the cap. So that's our $5,000 will hopefully be used for good. And then the hair is going to be donated to the BC Children's Hospital for the donation of creating a wig with it. At 4:30 today, we have I do have an appointment booked to try to clean this up. Maybe a little less mullet-like, maybe a little bit more of a conservative haircut. We'll see. I'm not sure if he can work in his magic, but we will see.
This whole experience for me was very overwhelming, but in a positive way, and it was almost like a really changing experience, seeing how a little idea became such an impact on a community so small to, almost a whole country that we're trying to help out. It's really crazy to me. I'm almost speechless.
I hope that basically from this whole thing that there's been some awareness raised, that they want to go out and they want to fundraise, they want to try to change the world, do something good. That sometimes just sitting idly by is something that they don't have to do. It's going to be an interesting look for a little while, but yeah, I'm still kind of excited about this.
Well, the NSO is taking a break in the rehearsal for the big concert on Friday. It's the songs and music of James Bond. And joining me now, a man I haven't seen in more than 2 years, Mark David. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Anthony. It's been quite a while.
Too long. So we've got this concert on Friday. What's the concert all about?
James Bond, 60th anniversary. We've pulled out music from the beginning, the first years, right up to the last James Bond movie that was released not too long ago.
So I understand you've got the original music, and you personally binge watched every James Bond movie from the very start to today?
I did. If I'm going to conduct a James Bond movie, I have to watch all the movies. And actually, I watched them in chronological order also. It was really great to see the progression. I was watching the movie, but really listening to the music at the same time and see how the music evolved or progressed through the different stages of James Bond.
Now, I know you can't play favorites. Is there one that you really kind of love as a conductor? Is there one that's really challenging? Because the musicians are musicians, singers are singers, but a conductor, which one do you find really challenging and you like?
Well, there are several, and I'd say the first arrangements of the first movies, all written by John Barry and then orchestrated by Nick Raines. They're just incredible arrangements, and it's really orchestral music. As you move forward, we get more into songs. I'm thinking of Skyfall and that are accompanied by symphony orchestra, but the first ones are really meant to be orchestral and orchestral color. So those are the ones we have the most fun with.
So there's your bias. So in a couple of nights we'll have the concert. I know that there aren't that many tickets left. What do you hope the audience will get? 2 years of absence because of the pandemic and COVID-19. As I said, I haven't seen you in ages. What do you hope the audience will take away on Friday night for this important fundraiser for the Symphony as well?
Absolutely. Last year, obviously, we did not have this fundraiser. So we just want everyone to have a great time gathering together and hearing this music instead of hearing it via Zoom or other online devices, to hear live music in a concert hall. For us, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and there's nothing like it. Listen, break a leg. I'll see you on Friday night. Thank you.
See you Friday. Thank you, Anthony.
Well, 60 years since the first Bond movie opened in 1962. I'm honored to get it to be the MC for this concert on Friday, and I hope to see you there. There's only a few dozen tickets left, so get in touch with the Arts and Culture box office in St. John's if you can. Now, tomorrow we'll take you to a rehearsal to meet some of the singers, including Michelle Doyle. Have a look.
Skyfall is where we start. 1,000 miles and poles apart, where worlds collide and days are dark. You may have my number, you can hate my name, but you'll never have my heart. Let the sky fall, when it crumbles, we will stand tall, face it all together. Let the sky fall, when it crumbles, we will stand tall, face it all together at skyfall.
Well, that looks like it's going to be a great event.
Beautiful,
Yeah, powerful. Oh, and you can imagine being there in the Arts and Culture Center. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And Michelle Doyle's great too.
Of course.
Yeah, amazing. Well, let's look ahead to the long range forecast. We were talking earlier about a bit of a warm up, but some wet weather on the way as well. What's in store?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to see some more weather, well, I should say an unsettled weekend, as we've been seeing for the last little bit as well. There you go. Thursday evening, we're going to see that area of high pressure will move off to the north and then allow the next system to move in. So we are going to see that move across the Maritime provinces first with some snow, some freezing rain and some rain, and eventually as we head through Friday evening, we're going to start to see that snow head towards Newfoundland as well. Otherwise, it will actually be a fairly nice start to the day
on Friday, and then eventually that snow will move a little bit further north and east as the system gets a little bit closer. So temperatures on Friday should sit between 0 and +3 for a good chunk of the island. The northern peninsula, you're looking at your temperatures into the minus single digits just barely, and then snow will move in for Lab City as well. You'll be hovering around the 0-degree mark. Otherwise, lots of sunshine for the rest of the Big Land, except for the northern peninsula, but that will be snow later on in the evening. Now, as that system continues to track a little bit further north, we're looking at an area of potentially some freezing rain and or ice pellets, or a mixture of both of them along southern areas of the island, including the Avalon. A good chunk of the morning we'll see that freezing rain as far as this model is pointing at the moment. Anything north of that should fall as snow. We could see some accumulation, significant accumulation for parts of the province on Saturday. And then at least the eastern half may end as drizzle or some freezing drizzle for parts of Central and the Avalon into the afternoon and evening hours on Saturday, with snow being the story up across Labrador and the northern peninsula. So we're talking about temperatures even above 0, but it does look like that should still stay as snow for the northern peninsula and up across Labrador as well. Otherwise, 4 to 7 degrees across southern areas of the island, and at this point it's looking like about 2 degrees for St. John's. Now, looking forward, that's when we're going to see that warm up. Talked about this a little bit earlier, but we're looking at between 4 to 7 degrees as we get into Sunday and Monday. Unfortunately, it does look like it will be unsettled with the potential for some showers, maybe a few peaks of sun on Monday, but overall it is going to be unsettled. We're looking at a similar forecast through central Newfoundland. Maybe a few flurries in the mix, though, for you, particularly in the evening hours as we get the temperature dropping back down below 0. And then western Newfoundland, you're looking at showers and or flurries by the time we get into Monday. But temperatures should stay above 0. 4 to 5 degrees. Now for eastern Labrador, you're looking at some snow again right through Monday, and then flurries the story for Lab West with your temperatures in the minus single digits. Take a look at this shot. Some morning in Burgeo today. Julie Begg sends us lots of photos, normally from the kayak, but this one is a great shot of the sunrise there. Thank you for that, Julie. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
We have to find a way to get you down there, Ashley.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to visit
Doing the
there.
weather from there for a week. And
no problem.
Yeah, should send you all
Wait a
over the
couple
province.
weeks.
That would be also lovely.
Yeah. Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday evening.
Good night.
Good night.